Jim Beerends, who is assistant principal at Creek High School. And I'm especially pleased to also introduce Brad Fox, who is a wonderful principal at Creek-Amana Middle School, and friend and amazing colleague, Chris Copeland, who is the high school band director at the Creek-Amana High School. So, welcome.
Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. We're kind of on the tail end of the conference. We've got a lot of great performances in clinic so far, so thank you so much for being here today. This has been a really cool project putting together. We all know that education is an ever-changing profession. Lots of things are happening, and it's such an honor to be here with some fantastic administrators. We will do some introductions real quick. My name is Chris Copeland. I'm high school band director at Creek-Amana. This is my 13th year teaching now. I lose track after 10. And I've previously been at Linville Sully and West Branch and Oskaloosa, and now I'm at Creek-Amana. And so, we'll just go around our table here.
Jim Beerends, 25 years in education, spent 22 as a band director, taught in Missouri before I moved back to Iowa in 2012. Been in Newton since then, and moved into administration 5 years ago, spent 2 years part-time, doing both gigs, and then moved full-time 3 years ago to assistant principal.
I'm Mike Fisher, I'm Superintendent of Oskaloosa. I was band director, so I studied at Simpson College, and I was band director at West Marshall for several years. Then I've been a middle school principal, and I've been a superintendent at a couple places, but I'm back in Oskaloosa. This is my 3rd year here. It's my hometown, and so I actually met my wife in the Oskaloosa band of the 90s, really odd, I don't know, whatever you put up with that. So I've been on both sides of it, and so happy to maybe give you some insight.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brad Fox. Spent 5 years teaching and coaching at Center Point Urbana, and then kind of on a whim, moved to Creek-Amana 29 years ago. So I've been there a long time. Been a principal for about 22 years, somewhere in there, and was an assistant principal for a couple of years before that. You would not want me in your band, I'll just say that. I very much appreciate the band, but I was not in band. I went to a small school in central Iowa, and probably would have been a lot better student if I'd been in band, because my experience has been the band kids do really well in school. So, but glad to be here. Plus, just an awesome team from CCA here as well.
So a couple fun facts about Brad. So we try not to think about it, but 2020, that year, Brad was actually the administrator of the year for IBA. And so we thought, you know what, we have to get him here at the conference. So to have him here and finally get to experience IBA is such a great thing to have. And the second fun fact is, Brad is one of the select few, like I'm talking real select few, administrators who has seen the growth of a school district from 1A to officially next year being 4A, and all in the same district. So Brad has a great perspective from the small school to a very growing school.
What I heard there is I'm getting old. I probably need
So I'll be really brief about, I'm mostly going to be a facilitator today. The questions were gathered for the panel here. Before we get into the questions, just a couple of things preparing for this clinic that we can do as band directors to help administrators. And I kind of think of it as kind of like a shipping department, or like Amazon, for example, packaging and delivery. So packaging the band program to administration. A couple of quotes from some excellent resources here. This is a quote from Scott Rush's Habits of a Successful Band Director. Educate your principal just like you have to educate your parents and about the philosophy of the program. That's an open book. Administrators see what you're all about. And it's a great way to just open the door and say, this is what we're all about. So just kind of being public about that. This is another quote from another resource. This is the Building a Band Program That Lasts by Trey Reilly. First meeting, give the principal a copy of your resume, because while you might not be interviewing for a job, you are interviewing for the trust. give them a copy of the band handbook and have them look over it leisure, and the rest of the quotes there. But it's really helpful to be transparent about the program and the expectations. And then at the very end of your handouts there, you'll see a kind of a one-sheeter of our band program at Creek-Amana. And it basically just outlines who we are. I mean, it's nothing overwhelming. It all fits on one sheet, double-sided, and you can see a QR code there for the schedule. You'll see who's on staff, what activities we're involved in, what a typical year looks like, what daily schedules look like, and it's a digestible form. It's not, drinking from a water, like a fire hose or anything like that. It's nice and comprehensive, and it's just something that it's nice for an administrator to have for their reference as you continue on. So that's my little spiel. It's time for the meat and potatoes, as they say, of this clinic, and that is referring to the experts here. So we have a few topics here, and these questions were kind of collected over the past few months. And topics will include what it's like to be an administrator, program advocacy, building logistics and scheduling, finances and professional development, and we'll open it up at the end as well. We'll make sure that we have enough time to take questions from the audience. So we're going to do a nice little icebreaker here, and we're going to do a really broad question. This is under the topic of being an administrator. What is one thing that you wish band directors understood about your role?
Well, I feel really blessed with who I get to work with, to be honest. But I think the one thing is just don't be afraid to keep bringing things forward that you see that can improve your program. And I think as an administrator, we sometimes get tunnel vision, and it's really hard to not see down the road a little bit or have the not an expert. So maybe my one thing is know, like I can speak for myself, I don't think I'm an expert in anything. So please be open and honest and share your opinions, questions, ideas, suggestions. I think most administrators will tell you that they kind of have to stay in their own world sometimes. So it's good to have outside suggestions and just keep us moving forward in the direction we need to. So I would just say, don't be afraid to speak up, because sometimes we definitely are busy. Don't always pay attention to everything that's going on. So
I think just remembering that everything that comes to us from other people is the most important thing to them. You don't take something to your boss unless it's really important. Fair? You have to understand that everything we have is the most important thing. So when you come and say, hey, I need to get this purchase order done, I might have just talked to a teacher who just got wrote up. I might have talked to a parent who's ready to go to the school board. I might have just had to figure out a new budget thing. I might have had a board member, freaking out. That never happens to us, but I might have had, a police issue, right? And so just giving us grace and empathy and knowing that that's a really important thing. That sometimes we have to prioritize and stack it, and give us grace too. I coach our administrators, don't sigh. I hear this a lot of the time. Hey, Mike, I need to tell you something. Okay, what's on your mind? And you basically just said, I don't care about what it is. And the truth is, we do care. It's just sometimes we gotta care about a lot of things all at the same time. I mean, there's times where I get a call on Sunday morning that a kid put a gun in his mouth, and I told her, and I gotta deal with that Monday morning. And then you'll roll in and go, hey, where we at on the choir risers? Yes, let me check on that. I'll get back to you. So just giving us empathy and grace too at times.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off both of those things. What Brad was saying about, we're very broad level, overseeing a very large spectrum of things in our buildings and districts, and sometimes we don't get drilled down into what's happening necessarily in your classroom. So making sure that you're bringing those things to our attention, especially big moments and celebrations. We want to know those things so that we can celebrate with you. So make sure that you're bringing those to our attention. I know what Mike was saying too, and I feel myself as we get closer and closer to the end of the year, trying not to sigh at teachers. Because it's...
Air conditioning, we're working again. I know, I got it.
We do care about everything that's happening within our building, but You know, I may have just dealt with a kid for the third day in a row who was making poor decisions, and I'm just as frustrated as that kid is, you know, with what's going on at the end of the year. And, you know, Brad and I were talking earlier too, we're looking forward to the end of the school year. We're racing because we want to be home for summer. We've got kids in our buildings that don't want to go home for the summer. So it creates anxiety in their lives, you know. So, it's just, there's a lot of different things that we have to handle from a day-to-day perspective. It's a lot different than being in band. It's a way different life, so.
And I forgot to mention, if there's any questions that you have during this, by all means, go for it. And if there's any follow-ups you want, absolutely. So the next one is program advocacy. That's the next topic here. And so how often should band directors communicate with building and district level administrators?
I can go first on this one. As often as you need to. I have an open door policy, and you know, it was a unique situation for me because I didn't leave the building that I was the band director in. So when Adam came in, you know, he took a huge leap of faith that the guy that was there before him wasn't going to be the guy in the room evaluating him. And I told him from day one that I would not be that person, and made sure that we addressed that as administration. But that I was always there for him if he needed something from me. And that my door was always open to him. He could come in. And all of our teachers have that too. You know, my door's open. If you need something, please come ask. Understanding that life is going on at the same time, and I may have just kicked a kid out of school for 10 days for doing something dumb too. But as often as you need to, come see us. We want to be there to assist and to help. And I think that's our role to facilitate. And like I said, especially with celebrations, we want to be able to celebrate the good things that are happening in your program. So, you know, and it's also nice to know when we might have something headed our way that may have need some special attention, like I got a mad parent. It's always nice to have that heads up too, and so we can have a conversation about that before it hits my desk or it comes across my phone too. So,
good question. All right, so you were talking about celebrations a lot, which is awesome. How would you like your band director to talk to you about the celebrations? Email, in person?
either.
Doesn't matter?
Either.
Okay.
Either. You know, if you're in the office, and I mean, we try to encourage our teachers to check their mailboxes at least once a day if you're in the office and I'm not busy and you want to stop by and have a conversation, stop by and have a conversation. You know, if you feel like if you don't know your email, great, do it that way, you know. And I think it's important that everyone in the building hears what's going on in your program, so.
Yeah, I think in terms of positive, something I learned a long time ago, if you have like an honor band program, highlight the names of your kids, put it in the administrator's mailbox. And there's just sees it, you know, things like that. Choose a text, there's a cool picture, right? I love it when our band directors, there's several of them sitting back here, they'll send me a picture of something really cool. We bought a semi the other day, they sent me a picture of a semi, I'm like, that's cool. I don't know, I had a lot of questions. Now, I heard we found a trailer too, but we couldn't get in to get it. But you know, that was really cool. You know, those awesome things. The other thing too is when it comes to negative stuff, no surprises. Okay, you want to be standing where the missile's launched, not where it lands. Does that make sense? So what happens is oftentimes the missile gets launched. Oh, you left this kid off the bus and you just took off without him, and maybe you kind of had it coming, right? But you probably want to let your administrator know, hey, we left the kid. Mom might be talking about it, or mom's talking about something like this. More about the when is the question. I'm gonna tell you how to communicate to your boss. Does that make sense? So it's called a leadership compass, right? The leadership compass is to the south is the people who report to you, like your kids, right? The people to the east and west are your peers, like other teachers. To the north is the people you report to. Does that make sense? So there's 3 rules when you want to talk to your boss that you should really adhere to, okay? It doesn't necessarily apply to me, because I think I'm a little different this way. I don't have as big as ego as some people, but I've worked on that. But one would be this: you really have to be a rock star at your job. We don't listen to people that suck at their jobs, okay? So if you like showing up late and you're a pain in the butt and you're negative all the time, and then you got really quality advice for me, guess where that advice is going to go, right? But on the other hand, if you're a rock star at your job, like, cool, but let's hear more. Number 2, make sure that you're respectful about it. You know, like, hey boss, you know, I've got an idea. I know you're in charge, but just want to run this by you. You'd be surprised, you know, instead of being like, hey, you need to do this right now, how that'll go a long ways. So, you know, having a submissive heart when you go to there. So, you know, be a rock star, submissive heart. Here's the big one: timing. I'm in the middle of lunch shift. That's not a great time. anything after noon on Friday, unless somebody's dying, do not give me bad news. Because it ruins my weekend, it makes me mad. If it ruins my weekend, I'm gonna ruin other people's weekends. I just have a rule on that. If you really wanna make me mad, right? Send me an email and piss me off at 4:30 on a Friday. It hurts my wife, it hurts my kids, and somebody's gonna pay for it on Monday, right? But on the other hand, I'll also say it's gonna be bad news in person, not over email, is a great thing too. But I think both of those balances. So that somebody taught me, a pastor one time, taught me how to talk to your boss, and it went a long ways for me. And again, positive. You know, how many are PBIS schools? PBIS schools? Okay, what's the ratio? What do they say? Positive, negative. Yeah, 5 to 7 to 1. So give your administrator 5 to 7 to 1. And also do this, thank them. And not just in the program, we expect that, right? But just like, hey, thanks for everything you do. Thanks for having my back. Or thanks for not being a jerk like my other administrator. I don't know. There's plenty of those out there too.
I really appreciate the comment about being good. I think when you're really good and really working hard, and all these guys, they pretty much get whatever they want, to be honest, for the most part, because they have developed such a great program. It's really hard to tell them no. If they're coming to, you know, an administrator and wanting to advocate for their program, how do you not want? Now, obviously there's things you can't have everything, but it's a lot easier to go to bat with the superintendent or whoever you need to talk to about things and people and new staff and hiring another teacher and all those things when you've got a really good thing going. The one thing I would say that these guys, they travel in packs. Do you guys all travel in packs? Like when I meet with them, it's like all of them. They're like, oh, hey, we need you. And they all come in and I'm like, great, this is awesome. We can get it done at one time. But they only do that really when it's something that's really high leverage thing. Otherwise, do an email if you have kids you want to honor for doing great at something. Send an email because it's really easy for me to copy and paste that into the newsletter or into, you know, into the daily announcements and those things, so we can, it just makes our job easier. But I would say with big ticket things, you know, just reach out ahead of time and say, hey, you know, could we sit down and have your ear for a few minutes? And we always find time to do that, and really typically come to a really good ending to that, whatever the issue is or whatever the question is. And I'll just say too, be an advocate for your program. And for example, we're going to be building a new band room in our middle school, and these guys I really want them to like just take the ball and run. I don't have time to get into the weeds on band stuff. I'll be honest, I don't know anything about band storage. Okay, I know you put instruments in places, but I need them to really say this is how it needs to look. This is how we want the office to be set up. This is how we want the room to be set up. So they're really working with the architects more than I am on those things because they have to live it. Overall, I mean, I think like Mike said, get ahead of stuff. Like I want to know if something happens on a Saturday that went bad, text me so I know, so I can prepare for Monday knowing what I'm facing. I've been there long enough, I typically know the name and go, oh, no big deal, or oh shit. So, you know, that's just kind of how it is. When you've been somewhere a long time, you kind of know if it's going to go nicely or if it's not going to go nicely. So, but letting someone know in this day and age, before it's on Facebook or before 30 people, or, you know, nothing bothers me more because I'm not on Facebook and it's really a good thing and I'm not. But it's bad when I start hearing from other people going, oh, did you know this happened? And I'm like, why haven't I heard from, you know, everyone has the cell. So, and these guys do a great job of that. So I would just say, when it's bad, something happens after hours, make sure we're in the loop so we're not caught off guard.
All right, so this is still in the category of program advocacy, and it kind of piggybacks off of some of the answers so far. But advice you have for band directors seeking financial support and kind of a follow-up, how we can advocate in a positive, effective way. Some of that's kind of redundant from this community, but if we want to expand on that.
Well, I'm the money guy, so I guess I can go first. One, and that is, here's a big thing too. Don't bring problems without bringing a solution, right? And I think these guys know, I don't say yes or no very often. What do? I ask lots of questions, right? So when Lucas called me about the truck, right? He just knows I'm asking tons of questions. Like, how are we gonna pay for it? Oh, we got the boosters, okay. Who's gonna drive it? I think I have to get a CDL now. Oh, okay. Have you talked to Bill Ullman, operations director? Oh, no, okay, talk to him. Where are you gonna store it? Oh, we have a farm. You know, he already had the answer. Like, cool. can I drive it? I mean, let's be honest. Right? It was really cool. So that's the thing too, is like, don't come with a half-baked idea, because what happens is somebody brings a half-baked idea, what they're really trying to do is dump it on me so I'll do the work for them. I'll sign off on almost anything, you know, if you can defend on why it meets our vision, right? But I can't do the work for you. We empower people. So I think that's a big thing. The other thing with financial support is have a plan, okay? I'll support almost anything if you can tell me the plan, a strategic plan. I always had, and they have a great one, Oski, a 5-year strategic replacement plan. Like, here's where we're gonna replace this, here's where we're gonna replace this. And things happen, I totally get it, right? And we're pouring a lot of money into our band right now. We're trying to, we're a little short this year, I know, Rusty, we'll get it to you. But my goal is, so you'd be jealous, my goal is to put 50 grand into the band every year right now in terms of equipment and different things. So until we get it back up, because we have so much deferred maintenance, right? And so we're working on that. But here's what's nice, is that I'm seeing where it goes. Here's the other thing I'll tell you. Spend it on things that make sense to administrators, right? Spend it on like instruments and things like that. I had a Marimba 1 5-octave marimba at West Marshall, a little tiny 2A school district, because that's where we spent the money. The podium I stood on, I made myself out of 2x4s and a cabinet door, right? I didn't spend stuff on Wagner stuff. I spent it on one of the kids directly, you know? So sometimes, I've had directors before, none of you got these guys, but we'd give them all the money and they'd buy something like, that's what they bought. That makes sense. So just be wise about that it makes sense. And number 2 for me, I'll say, here's the thing I'll tell you is too, and I don't have it with me, but I can always help you with it. I actually, when I was at West Marshall, built a finance budget system built on per pupil funding. Why do you think I did that? That's how Iowa school finance works. That's how the superintendents understand. Ned Sellers was really into school finance. So what I did is I figured out an apportioned cost, a turnover, a cost of how much each kid was worth, right? And you'll love it. A drummer was worth more than a woodwind player, and a color guard person was most expensive. So for every color guard girl I had, it was like 150. For every band kid, it was like 90, and a drummer was like 110. And I mean, the numbers work, but that's how my budget got set. The more kids I recruited, the more money I got. Here's the best part. I don't know if he even read it, but he never said no to any of my POs. And I lived by that. And the thing was that I presented it to him, he was like, well, this is really cool, because it spoke his language. That makes sense? And I had it broke down to what we spent, and again, Ned never told me no.
I'm just gonna say the same thing that Mike would say, that you gotta come with a plan. And realize too that you may have needs and wants and desires, and you're probably not gonna get them all at one time. It's gonna take some time. So having a strategic plan, something that's laid out over a number of years that is workable and doable, and that's important to come with that information. Kind of touching on another portion of this too, advocating to your programs. We like to think about that as financial support, but the other part of it too is the visibility that you have within your community too, right? Being out and doing things, visible in the communities, that people are seeing the things that they're spending money on. One of the big things that we always did, we have a homecoming parade every year in Newton, and when I first got there, I was trying to convince our principal to let us just do t-shirts and shorts, because man, it's late September, we might melt, and it's Thursday night, the kids gotta get those stinking uniforms tomorrow anyway, and his big thing was, but the community paid for those uniforms, Jeff. So you need to be in those uniforms, and you need to be out there showing those off to the community. So, different perspective, and eventually I did talk him into doing the t-shirts and the shorts, because it was so damn hot one year that kids would have died, literally died, if we didn't wear uniforms. But, making sure that what the community's paying for, the money that's being thrown into your program, making sure that that's visible to them, and that they're seeing the results of that too.
Kind of piggy on the back on that too is, here's where your band program is going to be judged by the community every time. The fight song and the Star Spangled Banner at football games, because here's the problem. The band parents say at halftime, what do the rest of the people do? They go to the bathroom, right? Your pep bands and your graduation bands. You have to take those seriously. I see less and less pep bands getting played, and I'm telling you, every parent judges the band program. You could have the worst concert band in the country, and if your pep band's loud, like, oh, we have an amazing band. We took it really serious. We were famous in West Marshall because we did cowbell. Ryan Runyon got married over cowbells. Anybody know that story? It was on KCCI. He did it. Yeah, exactly. And I got no credit because I was the one that brought cowbell. But anyway, but it became like this huge party. I was a drumline instructor from out of state, but that he became legendary for. And so make sure, I call it paying your bills. Just like you said, you have to pay your bills with the community to make sure that they have a good way that they can assess you, even though, I still have trouble with my highs in my right ear because how many times I was doing this, watching the scores table to cut them off, my trumpets didn't know soft at all. And so, but I also knew that got us a lot of money over the years.
I'm gonna take a little different angle on this. One thing I've noticed, and it hasn't always been this way, but it's definitely really become this way over the last several years, is when you're supporting not only your program, but all programs, I think it's looked different in the community. I think when our fans, our parents, our students go to a game on Friday night, they're there for the football game, but they're also there for the band. And if that is the culture you have, then everybody wants the best for everyone. It's not a competitive thing. Where I will say, there's been a time at CCA when it wasn't that way. When it was almost the football team versus the band in certain ways, and they were jealous of each other or whatever. And at this point, it's just like one really good team, and some kids, put a football uniform on, and some kids are putting a band uniform on. But the community expects it to be excellence, no matter, we want the best helmet, but we also want the best band uniform and the best instruments. And it just, that support and that school spirit, I guess you would say, really helps feed into no one questions why are we spending this much money on instruments, because we have to have the best band. We want to have the best football team. We want to have the best, halftime show. So I think that part of it, we all have kind of bought into. Every kid matters, no matter, I love his thing about the financial things, that's kind of how I think too, but every kid matters, whether it's the starting quarterback or, the drum line or whoever it is, they all are really important, members of CCA, and we want to make sure that they all feel the same and all feel like they're something special, so.
How do you go about having a conversation with your administrators if you don't have that kind of culture in your school? And you really want to push for that kind of culture?
Culture is such a tough thing, right? But I think administrators have to lead that culture, right? If they're not living it, if they don't see you, if you're not seen valuing everything, then it really creates that animosity. As far as a conversation, I think I would just be honest and just say, hey, I don't feel like I'm valued as much as, X, Y, or Z, and really, you're not a good administrator in my mind if you don't want the best for every kid, whether it's the chess club or, whatever it is. You want it to be the best, so I think you just have to take that straight on and really just say, hey, and just do it you don't have to do it in a confrontational way, but just say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and how can we do better? And you don't want your kids feeling that way. You don't want your kids feeling like their program's less than anything else, so you're never gonna be your best if that's your mentality, so.
And I think too, be the example of what you want to see, right? Go to the JV track meet. I went to so many JV basketball games and FFA stuff and cross-country meets. That's all the band kids. They're FFA kids, cross-country kids, and like the JV basketball kids, am I right? And I went to so many of those. We did a cross-country pep band once. It was ridiculous, don't do it. It's basically 6 of us running around like we were poorly. But you know how much that felt so good to the kids that we did that? I remember Danny Kern, she wasn't very good, but she was running, and I'm like, good job, Danny, and she stops and goes, hi, Mr. Fisher, thanks for coming. I'm like, don't. But that's well, and you know what? My administrators saw that. They saw that I was doing that. We quit going to Urbandale marching competition because it interfered with the Magic volleyball tournament, right? The volleyball tournament also switched something for Fort Dodge next weekend. We were really open and we were really cooperative. And when you're doing that, that made it easier for the administrators. So what gets hard is when you want something from somebody else, but you're not living it yourself. But there's gonna be times, we'll talk more about this later, but our band director's kind of famous for being martyrs and victims. And I know, because I was the biggest one, right? Because we have the hardest job, right? You do have a really hard job. But sometimes we start to make people think our job's harder than others and we don't show up to PD on time. Or like, well, they don't understand, I taught 101 lessons this week and the core teacher doesn't get it, which I can just call them at 3:30, right? Which is true, okay? But also our kids sign up for a class, right? So know that your job's hard, their job's hard in a different way. But I've seen band directors that start to act like they're different than everybody else. Does that make sense? And here's how I know, because I was that guy. I was like the worst band director for administrators, right? I got so mad at I can't believe I'm telling the story. I got so mad at the middle school principal one day because he called me out because I was being mean to this kid about quitting band because I was bullied him until I stayed in band, right? And I I got her to stay in band, and he started yelling at me in my office. And I finally looked at him and I said, go F yourself. And I didn't say F. And a junior trumpet player was sitting out there. And it was so funny, the administrator goes, well, it wasn't very good. He goes, I'm really sorry. You're having a bad day. And he walks out and I go, oh crap, I'm gonna get wrote up. So I went to Ned, the superintendent, down the hallway and said, I'm gonna get wrote up, Ned. He goes, what'd you do? He goes, I told the middle school principal to go after himself. He goes, well, did he deserve it? I said, kind of. He goes, you're fine. Never got wrote up. Here's my question. How unhealthy was I at that point? How stressed out? How wore down was I? And you know what, it was May, right, for a large group, right? And so you gotta keep yourself healthy too. Does that make sense? Because you're not healthy, you're no good for anybody else. Sorry, but don't get that victim mentality with administrators. We sense that, and that's just not a good place to be.
You know, and kind of piggyback on a couple of things there. I always prided myself when I was band director of being able to go talk to coaches and other things and work out issues that we had. And I think, you know, approaching people and having those conversations before it comes to administrative level is awesome too, because the less we have to be involved in picking sides, the easier it is for everyone else, because we don't want to be put in that position. Because every program is important, right? And we don't want to have to choose sides. I'm going to bring up one other thing about funding too. I'm going to use the F word, fundraising. Nobody loves it. It's a necessary evil of the band world. But if you're going to fundraise, make sure that you're using some of that money on the kids who are still in the program and are raising that money. And I understand, because we were trying to, when I left the gig, I was trying to raise money for uniforms too. And you want to hoard every penny of that you possibly can so that you can get there faster. But you know, those kids worked hard to raise that money in the program too, and they need to see some benefit from that as well before they leave the program. So.
All right. Hey, Chris.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just going back to that idea of like supporting the programs of the school, you know, by doing pep band or going cross country meetings, stuff like that. I think we all agree that we do that pretty well generally. In your schools, what does it look like reciprocal from the athletic department? Like, what are the athletic programs doing to support the arts programs? And if not, or if it is, how did you get to that point? And if not, what would you like to see them do? Because I know, like, the school spirit thing I get, and I want to do all that stuff, and I'm happy to support it. And we have some coaches, like our football coach, Lamar's, is fantastic. And his football team makes up gift bags for our kids during March May camps like that. And we do pep band stuff, and so we see it from some coaches, but not others. So I'm curious to know what that looks like in your school, or how you might like to see it different.
I guess I can go first. Time is a precious commodity, right? And so, you know, we spend a lot of our time at football games, at basketball games, at whatever, supporting those entities as pep bands or as performing groups. You know, band directing is a very time-consuming activity. So, in response to that, do I expect those guys to come sit in one of my concerts? I would love to see them there. I really would. But I guess from my perspective as a band director, from an administrator, I get that, and how easy is that person to work with when we have a concert, you know? So they may not be sitting in the audience at my concerts, or they may be, to be honest with you, I don't know, because when I'm on stage, I can't see 5 feet from me anyway. So, you know, they may be there, they may not be there. Are they supporting my program in other ways, though? Are they working with me when we've got kid conflicts? Are they, you know, easy to work with when, you know, whatever, we need to share gym space, or whatever the case may be? I kind of look at it from a different perspective, I guess. Then, you know, are you in the rehearsal hall when I'm doing a concert? Or, you know, obviously the football coaches aren't there, they run inside for halftime, they never see anything we do on marching field, right? You know, so, you know, I guess I just get kind of a different take on that when it comes to that, so.
And I think what, you know, it could seem like, I think what helps my heart, because I struggle with that too, because this is a joke. I heard from a band director, well, the cross-country team would run laps around the football field when we're playing a marching band show. I'm like, okay, well, we ask, all right? Make it about the kids. The kids are the ones that want you there. And the football coach may never show up, right? But Gandhi says, be the change you want to see. Set the example. And the ones that are great will come. My football coach I dealt with got mad at me for using the ice machine. Well, you saw what I told the principal, so you can imagine I told him, right? But here's the thing.
told the principal?
Yeah, there was. I have mellowed a lot. I am an example of therapy and mental health. These guys are lucky they didn't know me when I was 28. But you know what? I made it about the kids. I showed up for them. I knew that was the right thing, even if the coaches weren't going to reciprocate. But what was funny when I did that, some of my best friends were the cross-country coach. One of the things I still love, I 20 years now, and I still get taxis on the state center because I was the volleyball coach, right? And it was so easy to work with. And so those will naturally come, but don't make it transactional. Don't, well, I did this, so they should do this, right? Because if you do that, it's not about the children.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I went to was just sharing spaces nicely with each other. I think that's a good way to show that you respect each other. But even the social media part of that, like I see our football coach constantly promoting all programs, trying to be pumping up kids, pumping up the band. And even at CC, it's not always been. I can tell you there was a 10-year streak in there where there were no band kids out for football. It just didn't happen. And I don't know how many kids I saw in uniform this last year marching at doing the show at halftime in their uniform, in their football uniform. So I think that shows the collaboration. But I also think even how you promoted at events, we try to promote our band at a football game nearly as much as we do our football team, as far as announcements and making sure everybody knows what's coming up. And we do that for cross-country, volleyball. I mean, I announce the high school football games and I'm dead at the end because there's so many announcements for all the sports and trying to make sure everyone's feeling good about being included. And I think that does have an effect over time with the kids. I think over time the kids start to feel a little bit, and I know when you have kids that are doing multiple things, that there is a real good carryover of pride in the program. So I'd be curious what you would say about that.
Yeah, I'd tell you, I've seen it both ways as well. I've been in 4 different school districts, and the building relationships has kind of been the cure for that. I've built really strong relationships with the coaches, just because I'm not athletic, but I guess I'm a sports fan, so like sporty guy, I don't know what, but it's just, if you show an interest in their program, or give, especially if it's about the kids, hey, great working Friday, Johnny, you did fantastic. I mean, all of that's, the building relationships with the kids, and then the coaches will hear about it too. Like, oh man, Copeland just said this about my, third string center who played 2 minutes in the game, and is positive feedback. What a supporter for no matter who the kid is in our program. So yeah, absolutely, and it's all, as long as it's about the kids. I've noticed that the relationships are really quite strong with the coaches.
They also have the negative stuff to say too when you're working with Johnny about, hey, you're gonna march at halftime on Friday night, are you gonna be with the band, are you gonna hit the locker room? They also hear that stuff too, when you're really razzing a kid or saying, that coach is real jackass because he won't let that kid, out of the locker room come marching. Both sides of that are true as well.
Don't talk negative about the coaches of the programs. Don't put kids in the middle. You are all band kids, I'm assuming. You were all got stuff in the middle, right? So just be really, really careful of that. Oh, another tip too, if you want to support, because again, I can go home and see my kids occasionally, right? An away event is worth 3 home events. So you know what I'll do? I don't go to every home bowling meet, right? I went to one away bowling meet on a Saturday morning when my kids were busy anyway at Newton, right? I made sure everybody saw me. They thought I was like the Queen of England walking in. Oh my gosh, Mr. Fisher came to the bowling meet, right? And that taught me out like 3 more Saturdays going bowling meets. But I'm telling you, I remember going to a JV basketball game in Eldora one night because my wife was busy doing something. I went up there, and also make sure the kids see you. And then, because there's no point, they don't see you. Hey, good job. At halftime, I slipped out the back, right? You don't always, there's ways you can be shrewd and wise and preserve your health, but also get the points and bonus, so make sure your kids are supported.
We're going to be in a little bit of a time crunch, so we're going to keep things going a little bit here. And we want to make sure we have time for questions at the end as well. So this is the logistics and scheduling part of this clinic. And what goes into building a master schedule that accommodates large classes like that?
Scheduling's hard, guys. It's hard. I'm in charge of our sped schedule at the high school, and that's only a small part of our master schedule. And it's difficult because you've got to put the needs of the kids first, right? And in a situation with band, you've got large classes. Ideally, you'd like to schedule those first and schedule around them. But then you've also got to realize too that sometimes your band kids are also those kids that want to go take that DMAC class in the morning over at DMAC, And so reconcile that? How do I make sure that that kid can still be a part of the band program instead of making a choice between band and taking a college credit class that our school's going to pay for? So scheduling's hard, and oftentimes when you find something that works, it's really easy just to hang with it and hang with it and hang with it until you get some fresh ideas in on how to make it better, you know. And sometimes you get stuck in a rut, you know, and anymore with the new law requirements and stuff, we also get to build the time in for MTSS and that stuff too, you know. And so how do you find time to do that? What does that look like? Scheduling's hard. It's just a hard thing.
I'll give you 3 things not to do and 1 thing to do, okay? 1, don't lie your way into the schedule. That just irritates your administrators because they're competing with so many things. Number 2, don't go mobilize your parents to fight for schedule. I've seen that. You can do that and it might work, but what's your relationship going to be like with your administrator, right? So just be careful of that, okay? So don't lie, don't mobilize an army, okay? There's a 3rd thing I forgot. Here's the 1 thing you have to do. Butts in seats. Just get lots of kids in band, because if you have a crap ton of kids in band, I don't have a choice. When I was at Hoover doing the master schedule, right, we had to go to a 10-period day because that was one time we get all the kids for Ken Hensey's band. It was an amazing band, right? We had to build a new band room for them. Just get butts and seats. Here's the other thing. If something tried to go crazy with your schedule, like try to put a bunch of AP classes against your huge, like 150-person band, guess who's going to do the heavy lifting with the principal then? Your parents and your kids. They're all going to be complaining, like, I want to do band, I want to do this. What you don't want to do, though, is go do that artificially. Oh, go tell the principal, go tell the principal. You want to be able to go, hey, just let you know, you probably have some parents complaining about this. I have nothing to do with it. Does that make sense? Okay? Let that do the heavy lifting for you. Does that make sense? I've watched so many people blow their relationship with their administrators because they got a power struggle with the schedule. Don't do it. Get kids in band, the schedule will work itself out.
Yeah, middle school, for many years, up until just recently, we kind of kept band and choir on an island where there weren't competing, you know, if you weren't in band or choir, you're basically in a study hall, okay? Because of our growth, we just finally hit a point a couple years ago where I had to go to these guys and say, I have to do this differently. I have to have intervention time. I have to have this many minutes for cores. And what we tried to do was make what's opposite band and choir good, but not something that's just gonna take every kid wanting to be a part of that. And that sounds a little weird, right? But we have electives opposite band and choir, but they're not, they're still very academic, so we're not getting kids to go, you know, lift weight, choosing things that really a lot of kids are gonna choose to do. We try to balance that a little bit, because our goal really is, we want as many kids in band and choir as we possibly can. I think one of the things too that I've learned over time is really talk to your administrator about kids, like the drop policy, like when are we letting them drop out? Okay, my rule is if they come to me and they're like, I can't do this anymore, like then I'm gonna go to the parent and we're gonna have a conversation about, sorry, we're ending this because it's not productive for your kid right now. But on the other hand, if they're saying, hey, this kid needs to stick it out, you know, they're fighting it because it's hard right now or whatever, then we're gonna do everything we can to keep them in that program so they stay with it, and 2 weeks later they've forgotten they even want to quit and they enjoy it. So we really are trying to, retention is really a big thing for us from 5th to 6th. We keep them all pretty much in 6th and 7th, and then how are we gonna keep them in 8th to 9th? We have a kind of an interesting setup with that. We have a 6th grade teacher that also teaches 5th grade band, and we have an 8th grade band teacher that also is a JV band. So that they're really able to keep kids connected from one to the other. Other than that, I mean, middle school is probably way easier to schedule than high school because we don't necessarily have to make kids choose too big of, you know, we're not choosing between going to Kirkwood and being in middle school band and things like that. But I found just being honest and having those conversations with them, you know, when you're ready to roll out that schedule, to make sure we've thought about everything. End of the day, typically in the middle school, if it's anything like us, we typically end the day with band, you know, whether it's 6th grade band, 7th grade band, 8th grade band in the afternoon. So that's just kind of how it works for the most part. So.
All right, well, I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but I think we might have to skip a couple questions, but I think we could also maybe put answers together in writing or follow up from the guidebook app, for example, we could do that. But I want to make sure that we have enough time to do this last part, and this is, band directors as a collective together. What can we do to make your job easier in this case?
I can go first. I think one of the biggest things is communication. And that's not just with us, but that's with all of the stakeholders. Parents, students, be a good communicator. Make sure that the kids know what's going on, make sure the parents know what's going on. I had parents when I was a band director, I had to teach study hall. It was one of those things. But I would spend my study hall on Monday sitting down a weekly email with the parents with scheduling. And I had parents who were like, please stop emailing. Like, no, sorry. You're just gonna get it. You can hit delete, I don't give a crap that you've been presented the information, Be a great communicator, and make sure that everyone knows what's going on. Be very detail oriented, have a plan in place. I love to put together itineraries when we were gonna be gone. I love to hit those itineraries on the nose. Like, there's nothing more frustrating than saying you're gonna come back from the marching band event at 10:30 and you roll in the parking lot at 11:30, right? Then you got pissed off parents. It's like, you said you were gonna be back here an hour ago. Right, so make sure that you've got things laid out, you're a good communicator, you're well organized, planning is and then, from an assistant principal thing, especially here at the end of the school year, be really good at classroom management and know how to handle kids when they're just not in their right minds. Not every problem that occurs in the classroom has to come across my desk. Some of those things you can handle within the classroom, and if you can be really good with classroom management and build really good relationships with kids, that's going to go a long way in the program. So I think those would be my top two things.
I think my thing would be simple. Don't be a music snob. Make it about kids. Make it about kids. We use music to reach kids, right? And I see somebody sometimes, especially fresh out of college, and I came from Simpson, which we're definitely music snobs from Simpson, right? But these kids aren't going to be music teachers probably, or performance. Some people will, but they're going to be fathers and wives and brothers and sisters, and employees. So focus on that, make it about the kids, and give them a good musical experience. But so many times a band director or a music teacher, like, some high-end musical thing, like, I don't know, I was listening to Old Texas a little bit ago, I don't know what you're talking about. So I'm not a music snob. I'm a blue-collar band director back home one time. So just keep that in mind. Kids first.
Yeah. One thing I thought of right away was, like, when you're an administrator, you're going to an event, you learn over time, like, am I uneasy about going to this? Like, is this gonna be halfway done? Is it gonna be professional? So I would say, ultimately, when you have something for the public, just make it great. Make it on time, make it great, make it professional. These guys all do a really good job of taking a few minutes to thank everyone, thanking the custodians publicly, thanking to the teachers for working with them with the schedule. I think all that stuff really sends a really good image of your school in general. But just being great, and then recruiting, I would say when we have a position open, which happens occasionally, I literally go to them and I'm like, all right, who do we got? They've already figured out kind of, okay, here's people I know will be interested. And recruit them to us so we continue to have a really strong program. I think that, like, I know this guy's a professional. He has his whole hiring, I've heard him talk about hiring, he's awesome at it. One of the things, I don't think there's anything more important than we do than hire, but I really like how these guys are loading the deck for me ahead of time with people that they know are outstanding, are great with kids, and then we just sit together and try and figure out how we're going to put the best person in place. And then be honest. I've said in interviews with a couple of these people, when we thought we were going to go one way, and someone else walked in the room that they all were like, and even people they had relationships, and they're like, wow, we have to have that person on our team. So just being honest and open, I think, about that process as well.
All right, well, we are out of time, but we can stick around for a little bit for those who would like to. I know Whitmar's concert's going to be starting shortly here, but Yes, thank you so much for attending this clinic today. And let's give it up for our panel.